Hey guys, Night Cruiser MA over here at Mom South in Foxborough. And if you were anything like me, you might have seen a screenshot or something like that of this particular bike, the 2019 Indian Chieftain Limited. And if you're like me, you might have had kind of a strong reaction to it. Okay, Facebook. Ooh, Indian's got new models out, the 2019 Chieftain Limited. It's a street glide. You know, maybe kind of an emotional reaction to it, I guess, would be. Why? Oh, Indian. No, I don't want a street glide. Maybe even destructive, just a little bit. But the reality is that I was livid. I was really mad. Indian took away our independence. They took away what we loved about Indian, that it differentiated itself from the other major American brand in Harley. We had bikes that looked different. You could tell from a mile away that it was an Indian and not a Harley, and we loved that. So I was pretty upset. This was basically a street glide. And I even made a post on my personal Facebook page saying, I am livid with I'm livid with Indian right now. I can't believe it looks like a Harley. I hate it. And a couple of friends said, hey, calm down. It's not that bad. Relax. It's going to be okay. It'll bring some more people into the brand. It's just an option. Remember, they still sell the Chieftain Classic, which looks exactly like the previous Indian Chieftains. Okay. So that night, I had a beer, took a Xanax, and in the midst of my preparations for Harry Carey, I realized I owe it to Indian to figure out what they were thinking. I mean, they don't really make a lot of missteps. If you look back at the 4-year history of Polaris's Indian, they do not make missteps in this brand. It's incredible. So what were they thinking? And I gave it some thought, and I said to myself, you know what? When they pulled the plug on Victory a couple of years ago, those people were mad. They were upset. They lost their line of bikes. They had modern American cruisers that were not Harley Davidsons. They were streamlined, they were sleek, they were different, they were progressive styling, and they didn't necessarily gravitate toward this heritage look of the classic Indians that Polaris had been putting out. So Indian had addressed that a little bit with taking away the valence fender and adding some striping and stuff like that. But in the end, by that time, I think Victory people were pretty upset with Polaris and some just walked away. But this gives them a path. This gives them a way to essentially move on with an American brand that isn't Harley and still have kind of a sleeker, streamlined, more modern appearance. Maybe it's not as zany and as crazy as Victory always was, which, you know, we love Victory for that. I mean, I own 3 Victories. I understand. But I said, you know what? I have to give this a chance. I mean, at first I thought, oh my gosh, this is like a Japanese knockoff. They're trying to look like a street glide, trying to look like a Harley and not get sued. But it's not a Japanese knockoff. This is Indian. This is American motorcycling royalty. This is America's oldest motorcycle brand. So no matter what they do to the looks, it's still an Indian. It still has a Thunderstroke 111, still has a nice smooth response. It has 3 modes now, Tour, Standard, and Sport of throttle mapping, which gives you kind of some neat options. Still has the rear suspension travel that Harley has never been able to figure out. So it's still an Indian at its core, and it's still something to be proud of riding. So I gave that some thought, and I said, okay, I got to give it a chance. I came over to Mom South a few days ago, and I looked at them right out of the crate. Stickers were still on them, and a little bit of shipping dust and stuff like that. And I said, you know what? These things are actually not bad. They look pretty good. Okay, all right, I'll give it a chance. I sat on one. The seat was different. Wasn't sure how I felt about it. Okay, I'll do a review on it. I came back the next day with all my equipment set up. I set up my lighting. I had these beautiful Zeiss Cine lenses that I was using. And when I looked at it in that sort of light and through the lens of a cinematic camera, I began to fall in love with it. The creases, the flow that this bike has in its styling. You don't get creases like this even with a Harley. You can look at that fairing and say it looks like a Street Glide, but it looks better than a Street Glide in my opinion. The creasing and just the shape, the character is a little bit more pronounced. It's very interesting. Once I looked at it through a cinematic lens and with a cinematographer's eye, which I may or may not have, I began to fall in love with the lines and of this bike, and the color was just absolutely stunning. This ruby red, there's also a chestnut brown, and there's some dark horse variants. Absolutely beautiful. So in the end, I have changed my mind. I went from livid to being pretty darn happy, and I don't think that Indian has anything to apologize for. I've never really flip-flopped that quickly on a bike, but once I saw it in person, I was amazed. So if you're like me and you were livid and just upset and disgusted at what this bike looks like, go look at one. Go look at one in person. Give yourself a chance. Give Indian a chance. I'm telling you, I was amazed. I think Indian has a lot of potential with this bike, and I'm going to have a review coming out in just a few days of how this bike feels on the road and what it really looks like. As always, guys, if you liked the video, please subscribe, give it a like. Helps me a lot. I appreciate it. I will talk to you later.